Like notes politically, it was a fiery debut speech, no doubt about it. But speaking at political rallies, whipping up sentiment of your faithful, that is one thing. Winning elections, and that too in a very, very contested field like the one in Tamil Nadu. There are many, many dozens of parties, small parties, caste-based parties who make a big difference, even though the politics of the state has swung between the two Dravidian poles, DMK and the AIADMK, for the better part of the last 50 years. Finally, Vijay is, at least from his speech, appearing to offer a genuine choice. The question is, how many people believe that this will be a real choice? How many people will buy this argument that he is offering a real choice in 2026 away from the two traditional Dravidian parties, DMK and ADMK, who have dominated the state's politics for the last 50 years?
நம்மளுடைய ஒரு எதிரி பிளவுவாத சக்திகள், நம்மளுடைய இன்னொரு எதிரி இந்த கரப்ஷன் கபடதாரிகள்.
பல அரசியல் கட்சிகளுடைய ஏ டீம் பி டீம் பார்த்திருக்கிறோம். இது பாரதிய ஜனதாவுடைய சி டீம்.
விஜய் அவர்கள் ரொம்ப வருட நண்பர் எனக்கு.
His ideology is like old wine in a new bottle. He has taken a leaf from every political party's ideologies.
Political enemy is correct according to me. But fixing an ideological enemy is wrong according to me.
மீண்டும் சந்திக்கும் வரை நன்றி, வணக்கம்.
All right, can Vijay breach the oscillating politics of Tamil Nadu between DMK-led front and ADMK-led front? The politics is really, over the last 50 years, oscillated between these two parties. There has been a genuine need for a third alternative. Many have tried before him to try and fill that third alternative, but have not been successful. Can he succeed where other, perhaps bigger name stars have failed? Let's now open this up to our guests. Narayan Tirupati, spokesperson of the BJP, is joining us. Shekhar Iyer, senior journalist, joining us. Sumanth Raman, author and columnist, and Kasturi Shankar, actor, will also be joining us. Sumanth Raman, let me start with you first. I must first say, I mean, I have never heard Vijay speak at a public event till I heard the rally yesterday. And it was a very impressive speech. He struck all the right notes. The question is, will that speech translate into enough number of people turning up to vote for the TVK?
Zaka, I think first I sort of liken it to a movie. We've seen the trailer yesterday. The trailer was good. There was no doubt about it. It was a very impressive speech. And the fact that he was open enough to say who his targets are or who his enemies, political enemy / ideological enemies are. I think that also was something which was in some ways not fully expected. You know, people thought that he would go over the usual social justice, blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, without specifically, but then he took both the BJP and the DMK on head on. I mean, he went hammer and tongs at both of them. So I think that he has definitely struck a chord. But we need to watch the main picture. I mean, this is just a trailer. There's still another year and a half for the elections. What's he going to do on a day-to-day basis? Apparently, right away, we are told that he's going to go back to completing his last movie before he quits the acting world, which he has promised to do. So after that is done, who are the other very important thing, Zaka, that we don't know is there is no team. I mean, we know that there is this one Mr. Anand who was a former MLA, but other than that, there is nobody who's known to the political world at all or to people of Tamil Nadu. So how is he going to build a team? How are they going to communicate? How are they going to respond on various issues? How are they going to hit the ground? How are they going to build their booth level committees? I mean, there are 200 questions which
He did refer to all of that in the speech as well. He said this is not a one-day battle. We'll have to go back to the people. We'll have to live amongst the people. We'll have to convince the people to give us their vote. But I want to go back to Narayanan Tirupati. I think one of the impressive things, as Sumant Raman said, he straight away positioned himself to anybody who says he is B team of DMK, he's taken on the DMK. I mean, straightforward, he said, in the name of Dravidian ideology, you're looting the state. To anybody who says that he's B team of BJP, he's taken your party also head on. So he's neither B team of BJP nor B team of DMK. So at least that criticism you should take away against Vijay. He is offering what he believes, rightfully or wrongly, is a genuine alternative to this politics between DMK and ADMK that the state has seen for the last 50 years.
See, Zaka yesterday only he has come out openly and he has spoken, and I don't want to criticize him for anything now, because yesterday certain things what he said he was right, and certain things, as you rightly said, he was trying to say what BJP is, and we will definitely prove that he is wrong. So I don't want to criticize him now because he is a child. This party is a child. As rightly Mr. Sumant Raman has put forward, I don't know how he is going to manage his day-to-day affairs of the party, and also the infrastructure. Tamil Nadu is a very, very different state compared to the entire India, other states. We need to understand here the infrastructure is very, very important. Organization infrastructure is very important, and that is why the DMK and the ADMK are doing well, because it is deep rooted. So it will take so many years for them to do that, and we are doing it. We are the third biggest party in Tamil Nadu, and the problem is that Mr. Vijay was trying directly. He was attacking the DMK, and that he is right. But having this ideology and his voice for removal of corruption, it doesn't match, because this ideology itself is corrupt. That is the problem. And he is also going in the same ideology and saying that he will be against corruption is not at all possible. That is what I say, because how do you run the party? Ideologically, people will join. And you say that this DMK's present ideology he will take and he will remove corruption. Both will not say it together. So absolutely,
he said very clearly. I thought it was quite brave. Very few politicians modern day politicians in Tamil Nadu actually brave enough to say, I believe in the Dravidian ideology of Mr. Periyar, but I reject his anti-God, anti-religion. This thing. Whoever wants to believe in whatever God they want to believe, they can believe. He said that. He said that in as many words. I think that was quite brave of him to say that.
No, Saka. Even Mr. Annadurai had said that. Had said that.
No, but Annadurai, of course, was a direct descendant of Mr.
Periyar,
ideologically speaking. But
he said, no, Saka.
One second.
He said,
let's be clear about this, that this is not going to be easy. And so let me ask Kasturi Shankar, we've had other actors turn politicians in the last 20-30 years in Tamil Nadu. Mr. Kamal Haasan tried, he was not successful. Mr. Vijaykanth tried, he had limited success. Mr. Rajinikanth did not even enter the political field after threatening to enter. Maybe he was daunted by the task at hand. But Vijay is here. He's right there, and he's saying, in 2026, I am offering a third pole in this crowded political field. Why should we believe that Vijay will be successful where Mr. Kamal Haasan, Mr. Vijaykanth, Mr. Rajinikanth failed?
Well, success, time will tell, but I'll say this. Where Mr. Rajinikanth fumbled, where Mr. Rajinikanth blinked, Vijay has gone straight for the jugular. Round one to Vijay. I think he has achieved the medical miracle of having BJP and DMK sing the same tune, speak in the same voice. So that itself is something that is very new to Tamil Nadu, where BJP and DMK have actually forgotten their differences and are talking against Vijay today. Is the talk of the town. Why should we believe him? Yes, we will be cautious. I think the people of Tamil Nadu have been treated to a lot of near misses and, nearly their situations, especially with Mr. Kamal Haasan, who, started out proclaiming his centrism and ended up as a DMK flunky. Unfortunately, he's one of the anonymous cadres of DMK at this point, and his party members actually have been left in the lurch.
In fact,
Vijay,
yesterday when Vijay spoke, the loudest cheers were when he attacked the DMK, which I found quite interesting, because that means that there is a genuine sort of anti-incumbency or anger against the present dispensation, and he is tapping into it.
People hate the present regime, and Vijay is the right man here at the right time. I think that's what matters. He is tapping into the growing hate, the growing disappointment with the DMK regime. Now, while the BJP is positioning itself as an opposition party that opposes the DMK politically and ideologically, what Vijay has done is he's positioning himself not as the opposing party, because remember, his policies, his guiding principles are very similar to the DMK. In fact, I think of him as the Tamil Rahul Gandhi, because his speech incorporates his policies, his party mission sounds like a mission sheet from Rahul Gandhi. The same points: caste census, secularism, social justice, many women empowerment. It sounded straight out of the same playbook. But what he's doing is he's positioning himself as a replacement for the DMK.
So let me ask Shekhar Iyer this. Now, I don't know if he will replace the DMK, but certainly he could eat into some amounts of the DMK
he is
vote.
Looking at a Vijay versus Udayamudi contest in 26.
I also think, Shekhar Iyer, where this whole game might actually be played in 2026 is, you have a lot of these smaller parties. The PMK got about 3 to 5% vote share last assembly election. The VCK got about a 1% vote share. You had parties like the Nam Tamilar Katchi, which has got 6.5% vote share last time. If he is able to consolidate all of those votes and get a 10% vote share, Vijay Kant in his first election got an 8% vote share, and he got, I think, about 6 or 7 MLAs. If he is able to do that, then he announces himself as the third pole in Tamil Nadu politics. Also, the other critical thing, Shekhar, please weigh on this. This alternate alliance in Tamil Nadu, the alliance that is opposed to DMK, Congress, others, which is BJP, ADMK. We don't know, as of sitting in October 2024, we don't know if BJP and ADMK are going into 26 election with that alliance intact. Yesterday, I thought it was very, very strategic again, very tactical also, that he did not attack the ADMK. He attacked the BJP, but he did not attack the ADMK. And he said, we are open to anybody who wants to join our alliance.
Definitely, Zaka, he has the potential and he has emerged as a disruptor. If you go by the reaction of all parties, they do see in him the potential of being a big disruptor. That's one. Number two, I am seeing for the first time a leader, who could consider himself as the generation next leader at a time when DMK is shifting focus to Udayamudi talent to appeal to Gen Z voters. So the issues he has been raising in terms of social issues, educational problems, those are the things that is at the moment is clicking with those very, very young voters, just the 18 plus, who are upset with the quality of education, who are upset with the quality of government services. There are a lot of things, and he was speaking in that tone. But at the same time, I am also seeing a leader who is making a major entry, straight away talking of coalition. He is talking of an alliance of parties and coalition of parties. No leader has before made an entry starting with saying we should have a coalition and we should share power. This is something which is absolutely upsets the DMK. DMK right from Karunanidhi's time has been opposed to coalition. There is no question of sharing power with their alliance partners. Even Jayalalitha held that position. That no question of coalition. You can be an alliance partner, but not in the government. But here, straight away, he is making he is keeping the doors open by saying that I believe in sharing power. I believe in a coalition to start with, coalition of like-minded parties, but with the promise that he does believe in running a coalition, from alliance to coalition. First leader saying this. As you mentioned, he was silent on ADMK, he was silent on Congress. That's very, very significant, because whatever ADMK reaction you are seeing is more of it's not so serious. talk about different wines in one bottle, new
Yeah.
bottle. That's a very mild reaction. And also, as you said in the beginning, many people felt that he has been sponsored by forces close to DMK initially. But looks like he is going beyond those forces, because Rajinikanth could never get out of those influence of those forces close to DMK. That's why he had to back out, because of those people who are involved in the film industry today. They have a stranglehold and they are very close to the ruling dispensation. So for any actor to come out and at a time when there is one big film left, one big budget film still is in production.
Yeah.
It's very difficult for any actor to straight away attack the ruling coalition. So there are certain things which is marking out. And at the moment, when you see whether it is Seeman's reaction, Seeman says, no question, I have been plowing a lonely furrow, I'll keep doing it. So at the moment, everybody is a wait and watch, but he is a disruptor. There's no doubt about it.
So, Suman Raman, the question then is, whose vote is Vijay going to take? Is he going to take the ADMK's vote? Is he going to take the DMK's vote? Is he going to consolidate these smaller parties? Ultimately, look, I always believe any new player, if he is seen as a vote cutter, will be beneficial to the incumbent. But the fact that he has taken on the DMK head on, and I keep saying this, the loudest cheers were reserved for when he criticized the loot under the DMK. Yeah. The DMK has officially decided not to send a spokesperson on any debates tonight. I don't know why.
Yeah. Zaka, the answer is very simple. If Vijay throws his weight behind an AIA-DMK led coalition of parties against the DMK, he will be in business. If he decides to plow a lonely furrow and say that, look, I'm now, the main opposition to the DMK, and gets delusions of grandeur, there is going to be trouble. Because I don't believe in 1.5 years you can get enough momentum to. And who else is left? You can't. He's not going to align with the BJP. He's not going to align with the DMK. So that leaves you AIA-DMK and Congress. And the Congress is sort of in a very tight embrace with the DMK. So basically, there is nobody else left. I mean, the smaller parties simply don't have the muscle. The communist parties together have about 1.5%, VCK 1.5%. That's not going to be enough to deliver anything for Vijay. So the bottom line is very simple. Here you have the AIDMK, which has 20% vote share, which he has not said anything critical about in yesterday's meeting, and it makes enormous sense for the AIDMK. For the simple reason, what do they lack? They lack a charismatic personality to take to the people. So I see this Pawan Kalyan kind of situation in some ways, even though ideologically Vijay and Pawan Kalyan are poles apart. The point really is, if he plays his cards right, and if he does not have delusions of grandeur that, he's going to become chief minister in 1.5 years, there is a very real possibility that he could get a share of power and he could be part of a winning alliance with a sizable number of MLAs in the assembly in just 1.5 years' time. Now, if he feels that he's going to go it alone, he's going to form the third front, and or the fourth front, or whatever you call it, then he ends up helping the DMK to come back to power.
No, again, the question of tying up with the ADMK there's a whole ocean you need to cover before you get there. Because
Absolutely.
What is the balance of equation? What is the balance of power there? Clearly, Mr. EPS would want to imagine that he is the senior partner. Clearly, he doesn't have the same charisma or the ability to pull crowds as Vijay just demonstrated in Virupuram.
That's why it's a complementary alliance.
At the same time, what about the BJP? Can the ADMK afford to not have the BJP as an alliance partner going into 2026? And vice versa. Can the BJP afford not to have the ADMK as an alliance partner going into 2026?
I hate to say this, one last point. I hate to say this, but I think the BJP is more or less back to square one in Tamil Nadu. Okay. I'm really fairly convinced that they are now going backwards in Tamil Nadu. The huge blunder that Mr. Annamalai made by, forcing the AIADMK out will come back to haunt them for many years to come.
Mr. Tirupati.
Whatever Suman said is his wish, and it has been his wish for a very long time. So, the same Suman said it will not happen, but we crossed around 2%
It didn't happen in the Lok Sabha election.
No. One second. Let him speak.
So it is his wish. He doesn't want BJP to, flourish. That's his wish. Okay, no problem. Mr. Sekhar had said, no leader has said that, we will go with, alliance party. If we wins that, we will have a coalition government. And that's what our party president, Mr. Annamalai, had said very clearly that in 2026, BJP, the NDA will form its government and with the alliance party government. That's what we have said. So I think Mr. Shekhar Iyer, I think he forgot to mention that. So
No,
definitely.
for a beginner.
Okay,
I mean, for a beginner.
fine. I'm just telling you this has happened. So Mr. Annamalai had said that, and as far as yesterday's issue is concerned, see, again I'm telling you, Zaka, to have a political party running its day-to-day affairs in Tamil Nadu is not an ordinary thing. It is definitely totally different from other states in India. So in Tamil Nadu, it is going to be very difficult. And I told you that we have never, Kasturi was saying that both DMK and BJP are talking in the same spirit. No, it is not. So I have very clearly said, Mr. Vijay, whatever he spoke certain things really acceptable to us. He spoke certain things which is not acceptable to us. And when it comes in the ground, we will definitely try to answer it, but not now because he has only started. So I am of the view that Mr. Vijay has started. He is welcome to politics. All are welcome to him to politics. Certain things which he was mentioning, for example, it is NEET. And definitely we differ from what he has said.
Yeah.
But certain things about corruption, what he has said, we do accept. Even we are saying that Dravida model is nothing but corruption. But Mr. Vijay says he goes on AVR's way, Evera ways. But the Evera way and the Dravida model is absolutely, it is corruption model. And how
No, but that's what I'm saying. Mr. Tirupati, what he has done is he has picked the portions of those ideologies and those political positions which are most popular in Tamil Nadu or most resonant with the audience in Tamil Nadu. He took an anti-NEET position. That is like the prevailing sentiment in the state. He's taken an anti-NEET position. You may disagree with it, but he has taken a popular position. He has taken EVR's Dravidian ideology, but at the same time he has said that, look, we are not against people who believe in God. You can believe in whatever God you want to believe. 95% of the people of the state are believers, right? Again, a very popular position.
30 seconds.
Middle position
30
he's taken.
seconds.
Third,
30 seconds,
on the corruption issue, like I said, he's head on taken on. I mean, it is obvious to everybody who he's talking about when he says in the name of Dravidian ideology, you're looting the state. He even talked about dynastic politics. So he has picked all those issues which are resonating with the people, and he's positioned himself as I'm taking the people's mood on this.
Zaka, I'm telling you, NEET, we are saying that it is because of corruption. We want NEET. They say they don't want NEET because of corruption. That is the only issue. That is the only reason they don't want NEET.
Okay.
And if Vijay is going to say that he doesn't want NEET, he is supporting corruption. And if even Annadurai, I mentioned, he said, Ondre Kulam Borvane, but still Karunanidhi was following EVR's way. Even today, they bash, they want to eradicate Sanatana Dharma. That is not Annadurai's way. But if you see, we need to understand all these things. So that is what I said. Your ideology, you want more people to come. Where from people will come?
So,
in Tamil Nadu, 80% of families are in politics. You want this ideological people to come to you. They are full of corruption, sir. Please understand.
Let me get closing comments from Kasturi and then from Shekhar Iyer. Kasturi, so again, it goes back to, can he be successful where Mr. Kamal Hassan failed, Mr. Rajnikant did not even enter the fray. Like you said, he blinked at the last moment for whatever reason. Mr. Vijaykanth had very limited success. Sharad Kumar, I don't know how much political fortunes he's got. Frankly, I think one area where it differs, and again, to give credit to Vijay, he's really at the peak of his career. He just gave a movie which is going to touch 500 crores. He could have continued, given his previous generation, he could have continued acting as a hero for the next 20 years. He is leaving cinema at the peak of his cinematic career, at least from a box office point of view, and wanting to get into politics full time, 24/7. He's got one movie left, which I think he had already mentioned that he has to complete that movie. But other than that one movie, he's out of movies now. He's in politics full time. He's a 24/7 politician.
Here's what Vijay also has going for him. Unlike Mr. Vijaykant that you mentioned, or Sarath Kumar, or any other person other than Kamal Hassan, Mr. Vijay does not have baggage. He carries no baggage into the political arena. So, and he has this huge fan base who are all under the age of 40. Literally, first time voters in the state, women. These are people that are going to, these are unknown entities because we've never seen them vote. And they turned up in huge numbers, in massive numbers yesterday. I had friends of mine attend as well, and they said everybody was between the ages of 18 and 45, and apparently they did not even whistle after Vijay started speaking and showed his hand to ask them to stay calm. So that kind of discipline for young people, I think his crowd management skills are out of the ballpark. It's out of the park. It's something that I haven't seen in a long time in Tamil Nadu. I also think that instead of taking a complete ideological change and ideological opposition, he's playing his cards very well by taking an inclusive approach, which is a slight departure from the Dravidian machinery that we've been used to. He's taking a slight departure. I think Mr. Kamal Hassan tried it, but he finally succumbed to, I think, financial constraints, most probably. But at the end of the day, Vijay, I want to say what Sumanth, I want to directly contradict what Mr. Sumanth Raman said. I don't think he's going to be able to be in partnership with anyone with chief minister aspirations. So that rules the ADMK out. I think he is going to try and go on his own with smaller parties. A lot of smaller parties today have expressed their support of his offer to share power when coming to power. So I think he's going to try 26 as both as a test of his individual strength, but also as a stepping pad to his chief minister aspiration.
So, Shekhar, I'll give you the final word. You know, again, with no disrespect to Mr. Kamal Hassan, I think Vijay speaks to a younger voter in a way that Kamal Hassan could not when he made his political debut. I think this Gen Z voter, ultimately in 2026, I strongly believe it's going to be about who manages to capture the imagination of the young. And you have three young leaders to choose with three very distinct political positions. You have Udayanidhi Stalin on the DMK side, you have Mr. Annamalai on the BJP side, and you have Vijay on the TVK side. And I think the young people of Tamil Nadu will choose which of these three leaders appeals to them the most.
Well, Zaka, you have summed it very well. And, his screen image is a person who is taking on the systemic failures with very radical solutions. And he appeals to the Gen Z voters, and he also appeals to the weaker sections. Most of his fans belong to the weaker sections. So there is a mix of image as a Robin Hood, but who believes in radical approach. So if you find he is coming with ideas, and of course, he's a better communicator than Kamal Hassan. Kamal Hassan, because of his penchant for the kind of language and expressions, he was seen more as the top of the mind actor. But Vijay is somewhat down to the earth, very radical, and keeps on harping on the systemic failure, which is upsetting our Gen Z voters. So therefore, he has a huge potential. And the last word I would say is, the way 3 lakh people gathered at that place, according to media reports and police estimates, none of them were invited over biryani or the traditional thing that is usually parties indulge in to get the crowd. And I mean, that itself shows that he has a tremendous pull. Maybe they are all his fans, but it's a question of time. What is the strategy he adopts? And over the next year, what you're going to see is a number of second-level political leaders who are unhappy with their own parties. They may start moving towards him.
Yeah,
I mean, that is a huge possibility. That can be from BJP, from ADMK, or even DMK. We know a lot of people are upset with the changes that is happening in the DMK under Udayanidhi Stalin. So you can see a new concoction before 2026 elections.
All right. Let's see. My own gut says it could likely be a tri-cornered contest, and you will see smaller parties, second-rung leaders sort of gravitating away from the DMK and the ADMK more towards Vijay. Also, the smallest parties, like I said, the caste-based parties, PMK and MDMK and NTK, etc., you will see that vote, sort of Vijay eating into that vote. I don't think he can get into a formal pre-poll alliance of any form with the AIDMK, unless, of course, this whole issue of Chief Minister is settled, which I don't think will be settled. But let's see how this plays out. It's going to be a fascinating 2026 election in Tamil Nadu. Thank you very much for joining us, all our guests. I'm going to now move on to the second part of the program, which, of course, has to deal with the Israeli retaliatory attack that happened over the weekend. More than 20 military installations in Iran hit by a series of airstrikes by Israel. Now, the fear was that once Israel retaliates, then we are on the precipice of a regional war. But the very nature and the scope and the degree of the retaliatory strike by Israel has given a window of opportunity to Iran not to escalate further, to get an off-ramp and to say, okay, you hit us, we hit you back, let's end this here. Is that what will happen, or are we going to see an escalatory spiral? First, I want to put that issue into perspective with a deep dive explainer video, and then after that, I will be speaking to Carl Bildt, the former Swedish Prime Minister, who's been at the forefront of diplomacy and negotiations in what has been a very, very volatile Middle East region. Iran's leaders have emphasized that they have a right to respond to Israel's airstrikes over the weekend, but they appear to be taking a more measured tone. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also said in a rather matter-of-fact way that the Israeli assault had achieved its objective. The comments both from Israeli and Iranian leaders came even as negotiators headed out to Qatar in an effort to revive long-stalled ceasefire talks in the Gaza Strip. But at the same time, it did not stop Israel, which already carried out more deadly attacks both in northern Gaza as well as in southern Lebanon. In his first public comments since Israeli warplanes struck Iran on Saturday, Netanyahu said that the strikes were carried out in retaliation for a missile barrage that was fired at Israel on the 1st of October. He claimed that the strikes had severely damaged Iran's defensive capabilities and also its ability to produce long-range missiles. Iran must now decide whether or not to respond and how to respond. On Sunday, in his first public comments since the strikes, Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei said that the strikes should neither be magnified nor be downplayed. He did not appear to be explicitly calling for retaliation. Although Iranian officials emphasized that their country has the right to respond, Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian has said that the country would answer any stupidity with wisdom and strategy. The attack was the first time that Israel has publicly acknowledged conducting a military operation inside Iran. Now, for many years, in fact, for the last few decades, Israel has maintained a strategic silence about its assassinations and acts of sabotage that have happened on Iranian soil. It was also one of the only handful of attacks by a foreign air force inside Iran since Iran's war with Iraq in the early 1980s. Iran faces a dilemma now after the Israeli strikes. If it retaliates, it risks further escalation at a time when its economy is struggling, its allies or proxies are faltering, its military vulnerability is clear, and there is a leadership succession that's in play. If it does not retaliate, Iran risks looking weak to those very same proxies like Hamas and Hezbollah, as well as to more aggressive and powerful voices domestically at home. Iran is already in the middle of a regional war. Since the Hamas-led attack on October 7th last year, Israel has moved swiftly to damage Hamas inside Gaza. It has also targeted other Iranian proxies, most notably Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis, and various other allies and proxies in Syria and Iraq. Now, all of these groups represent Iran's forward defense against Israel, that is at the heart of the nation's deterrence. They have been badly weakened by Israeli military's tough response, which in a way is weakening Iran too, and it makes Iran more vulnerable. Iranian officials have made it clear that they do not want a direct war with Israel. They want to preserve their allies, the so-called Ring of Fire around Israel, whether it's Hamas, Hezbollah, or the Houthis. After Israel struck Iran, Tehran on Saturday publicly played down the effects of the airstrikes. It showed ordinary programming on state television. It did not immediately vow a major retaliation, but it simply said it has the right to do so. After weeks of pressure from the United States to reduce the scope of its attack, Israel too avoided striking any sensitive nuclear facilities or even oil production facilities. Given the scale of Iran's missile barrage on the 1st of October, close to 200 long-range rockets targeting major Israeli cities, it was expected that Israel would respond proportionately. But on Saturday, Israel's fighter jets focused instead on roughly about 20-odd military installations, including air defense batteries, radar stations, and missile production sites. The comparatively limited focus of these attacks has allowed Iranian institutions to project a sense of normality in the country. The Aviation Authority in Iran reopened its airspace. The state-run news agencies broadcast images and footage of life returning to normal. These are all signs that Iran's leadership was trying to play down the significance or the magnitude of Israel's attacks. It also thereby wants to reduce domestic expectations of a major Iranian response. This was also Israel's way of offering an off-ramp to Iran, signaling that the hit was not strong enough that Iran will be forced to escalate. But by leaving a window of de-escalation open, Tel Aviv is also putting the ball in Tehran's court. It is also toeing the line that America took with President Biden repeatedly saying that Israel should not target Iran's nuclear or oil facilities. That message seems to have been heeded. Adding to its reticence, Iran also faces enormous economic problems, making it wary of any extended or costly war with Israel. It has been heavily penalized by the United States and by the European Union over its nuclear program, forcing it to move closer to Russia and China. The Islamic regime is also dealing with serious domestic dissent over rising prices and its harsh authoritarian rule, both of which play into any calculation for retaliation. That is perhaps one reason why the Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei allowed the election of a more moderate president, Masoud Pezeshkian, after the hardline former president Ibrahim Raisi died in a helicopter crash earlier this year. Against the backdrop of domestic unrest, the new president Pezeshkian has pushed for new talks in Iran's nuclear program in return for lifting of economic sanctions. Now, complicating matters, there's also a quiet battle that has emerged over the succession of Ayatollah Khamenei, who's currently 85 years old. With former President Ibrahim Raisi dead, there is internal disquiet over the possibility that Ayatollah Khamenei's second son, Mujtaba, who's 55, might succeed him. The powerful Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or the IRGC, will also have an important say, and it is considered more willing to confront Israel directly. Caught between limited military operations, a flagging economy, and now this succession battle, Iran is forced into walking a fine line. Over the weekend, Israel struck as many as 20 different military installations in Iran in retaliation for the barrage of missile strikes that Iran carried out against Israel earlier this month. Now, it was calibrated, it was limited in its scope. None of the oil facilities or nuclear facilities were hit. It was purely military installations. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel said after the strikes that this was meant to convey a message to Iran that those very same long-range rockets and missiles that Iran used to attack Israel, its ability to produce them at mass scale has significantly been reduced after Israel strikes over the weekend. It also gives a bit of a window of an opportunity, an off-ramp to Israel, to Iran, in fact, to not further escalate the situation. Will Iran take that? If you look at the Iranian Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, in his first comments yesterday, suggesting that one should neither magnify nor downplay Israel's strikes against Iran. The question now is, what happens next? Have we gotten off the brink, the precipice of what could have been an all-out Israel-Iran war? Will Iran take the bait and climb down the off-ramp, or will it further escalate? Let's try and make sense of all of this by speaking to somebody who's been at the forefront of diplomacy involving the tough and volatile Middle East region. The former Swedish Prime Minister, Mr. Carl Bildt, is now joining us. Thank you very much, Mr. Bildt. Let me start off by asking you, what is your assessment of the Israeli strikes on Iran over the weekend. There were 20 different military installations, but the nature and scope of it has been limited than previously thought.
Well, that obviously remains to be seen. I think the nature of the Israeli response shows that the Americans have been fairly successful in limiting what the Israelis did. When the Iranians attacked Israel on October 1st, they struck against essentially 2 military air bases and the headquarters of Mossad. So the Iranian strike was against purely military targets. And although I think the Israelis were contemplating a far wider set of targets initially, I think the Americans have told them stick to the same type of targets. And they did. I think they were very effective in their strikes, but I think hopefully that the message has been received that this is it, and there is now heavy pressure on Iran not to retaliate further.
I do want to ask you, so you heard what the Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei said on Sunday, that neither should one downplay nor magnify what Israel did or the Israeli strikes. Does that offer a window of opportunity for some kind of a climb down by Iran?
They have. No question about that. I'm quite certain that there are significant forces in Tehran who says, let's not do anything more. Let's not do anything more, at least now. Let's see what happens. If, for example, against the odds, I have to say, the Americans manage to organize some sort of ceasefire in Gaza, I mean, that could be also a way for the Tehran to say, we're not going to go any further. Were there to be other developments in the region related to Gaza, related to Lebanon, related to something else, then of course pressure will build up on Tehran to do something, whatever that could be. And although their capabilities in terms of ballistic missiles might be reduced after the Israeli strike, there's no question that Iran still has capabilities across the region that could harm Israel.
So now that we've had this retaliatory strike by Israel and we're not really now on the precipice of a wider regional war, I had the Israeli ambassador to India speak to me over the weekend, and he said the only reason the war is now continuing is because the hostages are still in Hamas custody and they want to get the hostages back. Do you reckon that that could happen and thereafter we could move to the concluding part of this operation, which has lasted for well over a year now?
Well, I think it requires some sort of political deal. I don't think there's any possibility for the Israelis to get all of the hostages or remaining hostages alive back without some sort of political deal and some sort of ceasefire. Either military operations will continue. I mean, there's only rubble left in large parts of Gaza, rubble, literally. But inside that rubble somewhere are hidden the hostages. And the danger is, of course, that if military operations continue, they will die either in Israeli strikes, as has happened already, or by Hamas as some sort of action that they take in desperation. So I do hope that the new American attempts to get some sort of ceasefire agreement with hostages released and with some Palestinian prisoners released from Israeli prisoners, that will succeed. I don't see any other way forward for the hostages.
And how may the dynamics, the geopolitics in this very volatile region where we have a war that's on multiple fronts in Gaza, in Lebanon, with the Houthis, how may that change depending on who is going to be the next president of the United States? We have just about a week to go before Americans make that decision. Do you think there will be a substantive difference in the approach taken towards the Middle East and particularly towards ending this war if Harris becomes president or if Trump becomes president?
Yeah, very good question. I think the main impact, and the impact is going to be substantial, is that while an Harris administration is going to continue the basic line that we've seen so far from the US administration, that is that there has to be a day after, there has to be a political solution, there has to be movement towards a two-state solution, there has to be that political perspective, as they say, for the resolution, long-term resolution of the issue, which is roughly what we hear from the Arab states, notably Saudi Arabia as well. Where Trump is uncertain, was never very much supportive to the two-state solutions. So it might be that he will line up more with these reluctance, to put it very mildly, of Prime Minister Netanyahu to contemplate those sorts of political measures. And that will have a long-term impact on stability in the Middle East, no doubt.
What about the other war, a war that you're much more closely watching and something that you're much more passionate about, the Russia-Ukraine war? Do you see that changing depending on if Mr. Trump becomes president? In fact, he said publicly on the campaign that he will end the Russia-Ukraine war within 24 hours. He will get Zelensky to accept whatever deal Mr. Putin is going to offer. Do you see that happening?
No, I don't see that happening. He say that he's going to close down the war in 24 hours. I'm not quite certain how that is going to happen. It might be that his idea is to sort of pressure Zelensky into accepting the Russian terms. I don't think those terms, as they have been formulated by President Putin, which is essentially the dismemberment of Ukraine and Ukraine ceasing to be an independent state, that would be acceptable to any political leadership in Ukraine. And there would also be substantial European opposition to that, because it has sort of huge implications for the security of other European nations. It is not necessarily so that Ukraine is the last one on Mr. Putin's list.
So to that extent, do you think that if Mr. Trump becomes president, the United States may pull out of NATO? He's been threatening to do that. He says the European allies need to punch above their weight and that the US can't be carrying on the burden of Europe's security forever. Do you think if Trump were to be president, then America might pull out of NATO?
I think it's rhetoric, although thankfully we haven't heard very much of it in the campaign speeches. I don't think he will do that, but he will be sort of another partner inside NATO than the Biden administration has been. He will clearly be less committed to the security of Europe, and that will have significant ramifications. How he will handle the concrete crisis that might develop with Ukraine or other parts of the Russian periphery, that remains to be seen. So there is no doubt significant worries in Europe about the impact of a Trump administration, even if they were to remain inside NATO, which I think is still the most likely scenario.
I want to come to the concluding part of this interview, and obviously, everyone wants to know what's happening in the US, who is going to win the US presidential election. We've got exactly a week now between now and election day. The polls seem to be very, very close. They're saying this is going to be the closest election in an entire generation in the US. And now people are saying this close to the election. What does your gut say? What does your gut feel as to who might win next Tuesday?
Well, I've never been very successful in forecasting the detailed results of either elections in Sweden or India. And I think both Swedish and Indian elections have demonstrated that the end result at the end of the day, of the polling day, or of the last polling day in your case, has sometimes been slightly different from forecast by the opinion polls. So I lean back and say to myself, we will know in 2 weeks' time. And to guess today is very difficult. It seems like sort of Trump is somewhat back in the business of the possibility of winning, but that's just guesswork from on the other side of an ocean.
This Diwali, The presidential election coming up next week now follows a rather curious model that is familiar. The candidate with the most votes does not necessarily for that reason win the election. As it happens, the nation votes, but the states elect. A quick reminder just how that happens and why that can be such a problem. The national vote is counted state by state. On the basis of that state vote, the state itself then becomes the voter for the second stage of the election. And in that second stage, each state is allotted a certain number of electors for the purpose of what is called the Electoral College vote. In all, 538 electors are picked from across the states. The electors themselves are just typically party members. The number of electors from each state is roughly proportionate to its population. So California, for example, as the largest state, gets 54 electors within that electoral college, and little Wyoming state and some other really small ones get just about 3 each. The president is elected on the basis of the majority of this electoral college voting and not on the strength of the majority of national votes that were cast in the first instance, which means that to become a president, of course, a candidate needs at least 270 of those electoral college votes. It's that transition from the first to the second stage that brings a twist, and that's the tricky one. Hillary Clinton won 3 million votes more than Trump in 2016, but Trump won the election. A candidate who gets just one more than 50% of the vote in a state typically gets then 100% of it for purpose of the electoral college. A candidate who may get 49% then loses 100% of the popular vote that the candidate won.
The states award their electoral votes mostly by winner take all. That is, if someone carries the state of California, they get all of the state's electoral votes, not just, let's say, 2/3 based on their winning 2/3 of the vote. And that changes the nature of campaigning a lot. You can say it makes the larger states particularly powerful, but another way you could put it is that it means that states where the outcome is not in doubt because it's clearly going to support one candidate or the other, people don't bother campaigning in those states. The presidential candidates don't visit those states as much during a campaign, and instead they spend their time in what might be 6 or 8 states where the outcome is in doubt, and those states get enormous amounts of attention.
Recent polling has revealed a startling political landscape. Donald Trump has a roughly 15-point advantage with men, while Kamala Harris has a similar advantage with women. What's behind it? Richard Reeves is president of the think tank American Institute for Boys and Men and the author of several books, including Off Boys and Men. Richard, your stuff is terrific, but I want you to, if you were to explain, trying to explain to somebody who has no knowledge of this issue and simply was to say, why is it that you see this massive gender divide among the political parties? What would your answer be?
I'd say there are 2 aspects to it. One is the cultural one, which is what's the idea of masculinity today, and who's offering a model of masculinity that might appeal to me, or at least sending a signal that we see men, we value the role of men. So I think there's a cultural element to it, and you saw that. It wasn't subtle, but at the RNC, Hulk Hogan tearing off his shirt.
Let Trumpomania run wild!
It's done with a degree of humor. And it also gets away from what a lot of men feel is a bit of a stifling conversation about gender on the other side of the aisle. And so on the other side of the aisle, what we're seeing is an attempt now to talk more about men and masculinity. But up until this point, for understandable reasons, the real focus on the left has been about women. Right. And about the rights of women, and obviously reproductive health is a big issue now. And so, as one Democrat strategist put it, like, we're the women's party. But if you do that and you don't say enough about some of the issues that are facing boys and men, or if the only kind of masculinity you hear about on that side of the aisle is toxic masculinity, it sort of feels like there's a choice almost between a very performative, almost a tongue-in-cheek, countercultural masculinity on the right, and a kind of toxic, very earnest, mansplaining discussion of masculinity on the left. And I think that's left many men, especially many young men, up for grabs politically in a way that they weren't before.
And your work suggests that this is all happening at a time when there is a real crisis of manhood. Explain what that is.
Yes, what's underneath this is a series of social and economic changes that have made life more challenging for many men, especially men of colour, and especially men from working class backgrounds and or from rural areas. So you've seen stagnant wages for men without college degrees. So men with four-year college degrees, better off than their fathers. Men without college degrees, worse off than their fathers.
Viewers, many parties make claims, but there are some that make claims louder than others. Which party more than others vows that it is secular to the core, that it's committed to establishing a firewall between the state and religion? Which party talks about the importance of all Indians being treated equally without fear or favor by the state? Which party talks about ensuring equality between religions? If your answer is the Congress party, then I want you to think hard about these few basic questions that